The Morning Dump from Hurrdat Sports with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning.
Good morning, Shane.
I see what you did there. Good
Holy
Good morning.
cow.
Good morning is code for dropping an expletive on my little friend.
Hey, it's Morning Dump, the follow-up to Coffee and Cream in the Morning on Hail Varsity Radio, which is powered by Currency. But Morning Dump here on Hurrdat Sports is with DB, as you can see.
What's
or
wrong?
Currency.
Listen, I like to sing, man, and I'm terrible at it, so sometimes I just get caught up.
When you're in the shower in the morning, are you a singer?
Well, I can't because everybody's asleep.
Would you be a singer?
Yes, absolutely.
And
because the water somehow makes it seem like you can really sing, even though, like me, you're awful.
Do you have the loofah brush that you sing into?
I'm not a loofah guy. I'm a wash rag / hand sponge. I use both. Did I tell you about the time? This is weird, and we better get off of this quick. So I like to wash in my belly button.
I hate inside my belly. I hate anybody touching my belly button.
I hurt myself. I was just kind of getting in there, and you're not used to it.
Touched it. You touched it.
And it doubled me over in the shower, and I was like, who do I tell about this? This was 4 years ago.
Thank goodness you told me.
Since I'm a lot better now. I know what I'm doing.
Was it
No,
fingernails?
I just had the rag over my finger, and I just was
in there?
Yeah,
swimwear?
because you never know. And you know what it was? And it just so happens I said 4 years ago. So I just looked at the whole umbilical cord thing, and my little princess was just born. And I was like,
that's ridiculous.
Man, belly buttons are kind of gross.
So
So it kind of got my attention, and I doubled over because I didn't realize how sensitive it is. I see why boxers get knocked out with body blows.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Hey, you want to know something kind of gross, kind of funny?
I mean,
The inside
story of my life.
The inside of my belly button's black.
Why? Didn't get all the cord out?
Because the umbilical cord got stuck, and then it got infected.
Oh.
So it's like black blue in my belly button.
Go Ashley.
Sorry about that.
Which for people
Hey,
that
she
have been
doesn't
around-
discriminate against my belly button.
Hey, I love it. Touche. Or should I
seem
say
very hurt.
Or should I say touchy? Yeah, you seem very hurt right now. Is it touchy with an apostrophe, or well, how does that go?
Yeah,
Who
no.
says that? Dude, I'm good. Everybody's like, oh, my God, these guys are a couple kids. But that's what you get with the Morning Dump. It's extra. It's funny. You get to see our personalities, so that's why we do what we do.
Hey, I teased it on the show. Let's get into it now. After Jim Leonard announced on Twitter yesterday that he was not staying at Wisconsin, it kind of got me thinking about, hey, what are the possible scenarios? How can you draw him to Lincoln?
Yeah.
And then I also saw the news about Dominic Raiola being retained, him being former teammates of Coach Jim Leonard, maybe one on the offensive side of the ball. Maybe you pair somebody with that on the defensive side of the ball. But as I sat back and really thought about this, I couldn't come up with a negative of Jim Leonard coming to Nebraska. I could only come up with positives.
Me neither. They play an odd front. Nebraska's roster is an odd front. He's made a living playing cover 2. He's put guys in the league. He always has the pressure edge rusher that is top 2 or 3 in the Big Ten in sacks. The list goes on and on from who isn't in the top 3 in terms of sacks that's played at Wisconsin under Coach Leonard's tutelage? And would Nebraska fans be willing to reconcile in their head, give a blank slate to Dominic Raiola? Forget the kids, because it's not about quarterback play. Coach Rule isn't selling his soul for a successful start to his tenure to get a quarterback recruit. But if somehow Jim Leonard and Dominic Raiola were reunited, and it feels so good. Is that Peaches and Herb? Shane, is that Peaches and Herb? I'm not sure. That is Peaches and Herb, right?
Yeah, it is.
Way older than my man Drew Down over here, but that's okay because he keeps me young. I would make
you
that.
make me feel so young.
Especially with Coach
That's
Rule.
Frank Sinatra.
Thanks.
So he does know who plays in the NL East in baseball, but he knows
anything and
random
everything music.
songs in Frank Sinatra.
Yeah, I asked him yesterday. I said, if you could write a children's book, what would it be about? He said it would be what would you say? Like
I said musical instruments.
But it was a series, right? It was a series
it
of
would be a short series.
Yeah, short story series.
A short series from the 5-foot guy.
That's what I
How
said.
I carried a baritone to school, even though the case was bigger than me.
Exactly.
By Shane Schillerberg.
And if anybody can do it, I could, and then that'll get you through your
The
day. if you're
difference
carrying it
between
through.
playing a reed out of the front of my mouth versus
The school bully that didn't talk, my tuba case.
wow, how to play the cello.
Absolutely.
By the Count of Monticello. So, like, if you could trade or exchange or get a Leonard, gosh, and so there's so many things at play. The dad, the play-by-play guy, or the color analyst, I'm not a fan, the alum of what's going on with Nebraska, just the sports fan.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many different dynamics and things at play in the perspective that you get. But I will say this. I would be tickled in all of those facets that I just explained if somehow they could wrangle Jim Leonard.
Well, he fits in rules.
Should I allow myself to even entertain that?
You should, because it would be something if he didn't fit Matt Rule's staff. And he really does fit the staff perfectly. He's young. He's a great recruiter. He's got a bona fide track record. He knows the Big Ten. He knows the Midwest when it comes to recruiting.
From the Midwest.
Would build an even bigger name for himself if he were to rebuild this program, this defense, back to greatness if he still desires the NFL. Think about if he came to Nebraska, built this defense back to what it used to be, and then was able to put that on his resume to just kind of jumpstart him to be a head coach someday. Like, he doesn't even have to go be a DC, a coordinator, a linebackers coach anywhere in the NFL. He could literally go from defensive coordinator at Nebraska and just take over a job somewhere. He would get to coach this historically great defense. He would get to play against the team that overlooked him for the shiny new toy. And, look, he would get to coach on the same sidelines as one of his former teammates.
So
there's a lot there that just screams, hey, Jim Leonard, this is what we can offer you.
let me ask you something. Does what's going on, the state of influx in the Big Ten West, especially depending on what happens with Brom and Louisville or whatever's going on at Louisville with Satterfield leaving, going to Cincy, Illinois still trying to be on the come, Wisconsin going through change, Iowa's going to have to make some changes. Fitz has fired some of his staff. Are we excited about this timing for Nebraska in the West? Has it skewed your expectations?
Yes, it has.
It's exciting.
When you say skewed my expectations, it has in regards to the uncertainty of what the Big Ten West will look like next year. Because year after year after year, the Big Ten West has always been consistent, right? You kind of knew what you were going to get by season's end. Iowa was going to do great things. Wisconsin was going to do great things. You look up to the east, you go Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State. You know the teams that are always going to do great things. But now, based on everything that you just said, it's like, I wonder if Iowa can make it work with Cade McNamara. I wonder if Wisconsin can make it work with all of the changes.
And I don't think Iowa stands pat. I think they'll make some changes, even if they rearrange the chairs on the back deck. I think they make some changes. Wisconsin already making changes. Illinois is Illinois. Is Minnesota the most consistent right now as they transition from the Tanner Morgan, that era? And if they are, we're not alarmed. Right?
I think they'll grab another Tanner Morgan in the portal.
So my point in saying that is it right for the picking?
In regards to Jim Leonard?
The Big Ten West.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, would a Leonard shift the balance of power? I don't know.
I mean, if you look,
so some folks in Madison will tell you they don't love the recruiting. Some of that was Paul Chryst, though, because we don't know about Jim Leonard as the interim or a head coach for very long.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, though. If it doesn't have anything to do with recruiting, look at what he did with those guys. Recruiting is just one little percentage on a successful football team, on a successful football coach. And when you get to Jim Leonard and what he was able to do at Wisconsin, how he was, top 5, top 10 in defense over the past 5 years. This is something to brag about.
Yeah.
I can't imagine trying to knock Jim Leonard while he's on his pedestal.
Well, I mean, even in a down year, when you take a look at Wisconsin Badgers in the draft, you had Leo Chenal. Who went to a team that I really, really like, the Chiefs, Logan Bruss, who signed a contract. He was picked with the Rams. You had Jake Ferguson, obviously, Matt Henningsen. I mean, you have Faion Hicks. Like, listen, there's guys that are – and that's just 2022 when they weren't even supposed to be good.
And then look before that, DB, from 2017 to 2021, his defense has allowed the fewest yards and third fewest points per game in the nation.
Yeah. Again – a guy that I've got a chance to at least speak with, and my son probably knows him better than I do. I'm impressed.
This is somebody.
I can't even believe we're talking about this because you're allowing me to get excited.
This is somebody that you build.
I try to keep my emotions in check.
You build a subdivision around him.
Listen.
Matt Rule has the biggest house in the neighborhood, and right now you're building a cul-de-sac. And you're still looking for who's moving into that house. That house is really nice. Who's moving in there?
Especially now where I think Nebraska fans, some, are a little uneasy with what's going on with the quote-unquote inexperience of the staff, kind of the youth of the staff, kind of compare and contrast. But all Coach Rule is asking you to do is trust him. And I get it. Nebraska fans feel as though they've been burned.
You know me, and I like to look at the furthest star away.
Oh, yeah.
The furthest
Yeah, you said that
star.
this morning on Coffee and Cream, and I was like a little kid. I was like, oh, I'm listening.
Hey, back in November.
By the way, we didn't really get that this time around, did we, with the who's moving in, who do you see on the plane coming in to be the new coach?
Yeah.
I see this coach moving in, this coach.
Because I think Rule and when it was hired happened so quickly from when we had given up hope that we just allowed him to do his thing without the speculation.
Yeah.
And now we're speculating again because we're like, who's the defensive coordinator? Who's coaching wide receivers?
When Jim Leonard comes to Nebraska, I may retire.
Yeah.
You may only have me for 3 weeks.
Yeah, I think he knows who he's targeting for his linebacker coach. I've said this numerous times. Rob Dvorak from Carolina. So, again, going young because I think Dvorak is 29.
They're building something. They are getting coaches that can relate more with the student athletes today.
And Coach Rule thinks that he can coach coaches. That I'm cool with that. Hey, so it's like if I'm a good art teacher and I know that you're good with your right hand, your left hand, you're pretty good with pencil, you're okay with marker, okay with colored pencils, and you're terrible with pen, but I'm good. Show me just the basic skill set. I got you.
Think about too.
That's how good leaders think.
I look
for a few key components.
I look at somebody that's my age, or even somebody that is your boy's age, and I'm looking at a coaching staff, right? And if a 60-year-old man, if a 58-year-old man came to my house on a recruiting visit, I wouldn't really vibe with that. That's just me, and because I get into a little bit of the bromance. Like, hey, this is a role model for me. Like, this is somebody that I could see myself hanging out with, and that's what you do every day. You hang out with these people. So if I can get a young coaching staff, which is what Matt Rule's building, and I get a 38-year-old, 35-year-old, a 40-year-old coming in and interacting with me, I'm going to be like, man, I look at you and me, and what are we separated by what? 15, 20 years?
20 years.
20 years. We're separated by 20 years, yet I don't feel like I am any less superior than you. I feel like we're on the same level. We vibe well, and like that's somebody that I'm going to hang out with every single day.
That's very interesting because I'm not sure, right? Because I'm taking me out of the equation. Let's take Caleb. So the difference between Stan Parker, Coach Stan Parker at Iowa, Mike Elko at Duke, who's offered, Jim Leonard at Wisconsin, who's offered, and Haycock at Iowa State. Two older, two younger, but the one thing that they all have in common, extremely relational. Like, he likes them all. Now, Coach Coop, 31, I think that Coach Rule hired.
Confirm that.
And so, we're on the way home from Lincoln and we're talking, and he's like, hey, anytime I can come down, I can talk scheme. We get to FaceTime J.C. Horn, a guy that he likes. Talk about, backpedaling tendency and things like that. And he's 31. Is there any difference in Coop and, let's say, is he 31?
I tried to look it up. I was hoping for a Wikipedia page.
And it's like he's young. You could tell.
Yeah, he's absolutely young.
And so I want to agree with you, but I think at the end of the day, if you can connect with people, you can connect. Which is why I'm not
no matter the age.
Which is why I'm not making any sweeping judgments on like Terrence Knighton, who has yet to really prove anything on the recruiting trail. Raiola. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know. Those guys are relatively young.
I think your relationship point just adds to my point. That just goes to show me.
Yeah, maybe.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, if I could look at you and think, like, man, that's a role model of mine. And I'm going to hang out with this guy because we have an awesome relationship, and he's made me feel good about me. I've made him feel good about him, or vice versa. And we go from there. That relationship is just a big piece of the young age, too. But I personally just feel being in the position I'm in right now. I remember I got recruited to play baseball in college, and there were some coaches that I chatted with that I felt more in tune with the assistants than I did with the head coach, and that was more just based on age, right? But two, I'm like, man, this guy's cool. Like, I would go play video games with this guy. Or I would go, say I'm 21 now, I would go get a beer with this guy. And, like, that's how I feel when it comes to building that relationship with somebody that's at least of a younger age.
I get it. I do. And it depends on if the head guy, whatever his age is or gal, is, like, super hands-on, or the staff is a reflection of who they are so that he says, hey, or she says, hey, I'm grooming you, you go do it. Because sometimes that's a thing. I used to look at the late great Chris Gradeville from Creighton and baseball and how he was recruiting and his rapport with players. He was an extension of what I thought a young Coach Service would be, which is why everybody loved Grady. So Grady was a good representation of Coach Service, even though some people feel, oh, Coach Service, he's older and the game's removed. Man, like, he's pouring into Grady. Grady was a reflection of him. And so it can go both ways, but that's interesting because I've never really looked at it like that. Are you speaking for the guy? Are you an extension of the guy? Did the guy send a messenger? Or why didn't you send the guy? Right? Like, so
And that's a great way to put it, too.
I've never really thought about that, though, until you put it like that.
Yeah. Hey, let's get on our high horse here.
High horse.
I'm going to be riding, and I'm about to get bucked off. You ready?
Yeah.
Back in November, a man named Jesse wrote an article about how Leonard was the best choice to replace Christ at Wisconsin.
Jesse Temple?
What's his last name?
Temple? Is it Jesse Temple?
What is any relation to Temple?
Oh. I didn't even know. Are you setting me up?
Bucked off.
I
ended up in a pond.
Are you setting me up?
No, Temple. That's what's it. That's what I was getting to.
Well, hey, guess what? Is there something in a name?
Hey, I like to reach for the furthest star away and think, that's pretty bright. And I know it is, because why could I see it right now if it's that far away?
I'm not even going to allow you to do this to me. I feel like I'm in a Shane. I'm in a glass case of emotions.
Somebody get me out.
Don't do this to me.
Oh, Mazel tov.
Don't do this to me with Coach Leonard.
Hey, I'm a huge fan of Coach Leonard. I know you are too.
Yeah.
And I'm interested to see where he ends up and if Matt Rule heavily pushes to try to grab a guy like him and bring him to the staff.
Again, you referenced this morning on Coffee and Cream, if he's really playing chess and we're playing checkers, if you're right, I'm going to give you all the credit in the world because everybody left Coach Leonard for dead.
Mm-hmm.
They did. And I still don't know. You have my attention.
The best thing is, yesterday you said Coach Leonard's not leaving. And then today, or last night, he left. And I'm like, oh, I could still be right.
Yeah.
So you're telling me there's a chance.
That's why I'm giving it. I'm a lifelong learner, man. I know people think I should know. I don't. So I'm always willing to learn from those that have some insight. That's how we do it here.
Hail Varsity Radio's poll question today. We'll get to this, and then we will wrap it up because it has everything to do with Jim Leonard. Question was, what is the likelihood Jim Leonard ends up at Nebraska? 4.3% of the audience said very strong. 12.5% said somewhat strong. 41.9% said not sure, which is
that's fair.
Fair point. And 41.3% said no shot. And those were
Nobody can do that.
Debbie Downers out there.
All right, Bo. Debbie, Denny, Dennis, whoever.
If he doesn't get a head coaching job, there's a really strong chance. That's all I'm saying.
Golly, speaking into existence.
No, I'm not Denny Downer.
And how many head coaching jobs out there are still enticing enough for Jim Leonard that are available because he thought he was next in line at Wisconsin?
And I think the coaching convention is late in January or early in January, so get ahead of the game.
You're not going to see Jim Leonard go coach at Liberty.
No, I understand.
He's going to be in the Power 5 or he will be in the NFL. Where that will be, I don't know. But he's going to be looking for a new defensive coordinator position, and I'm smelling one here in Lincoln.
Ooh.
So there you have it. Our morning dump this morning. We'll keep the Jim Leonard conversations going as we see it heating up or cooling down, whatever that may be. But even tomorrow, we didn't touch on this today, but on Coffee and Cream, we'll hit on rules first commit. We'll continue with the portal. And I want to present something to DB because it's another thing I thought about last night. Trey Palmer was the guy last year. Mm-hmm. How do you replicate Trey Palmer in the future? Is it somebody that's already on the roster, or is it somebody that you snag from the portal or via recruiting? We will get into that tomorrow.
Don't ask the Big Ten coaches who somehow voted Jalen Reed ahead of Trey Palmer on postseason awards, but I typically don't get into that. Last week I was like, Jalen Reed is...
Are you kidding me?
Ahead of Trey Palmer? Jalen Reed wasn't the best wide receiver. And I only say that because I know you're a Jay Reed dude. Right? It's like, I don't know why.
It's Trey Palmer.
Right?
It's Trey Palmer.
But we rapidly get away from the discussion. It's an outro. I better get us out.
It's what we do. Thanks for joining us this morning on Morning Dump. We'll see you tomorrow on Coffee and Cream.